Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Let's Talk ETC. I have with me Brian, Lora, and Shuvro Biswas of Cryzen. They're going to be talking about their algorithmic cryptocurrency trading application. So welcome, Brian and Shuvro.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
So before we get into your company and what you're doing, Cryzen, why don't you introduce yourselves to the listeners? Why don't we start with, you guys pick. Who wants to go first?
Either works. So I'm Shuvro, one of the co-founders of Cryzen. I got involved in this, in early 2018 actively. But just to go backwards a little bit, my background is in applied mathematics. So I have a master's degree in applied math, which was, I completed that around 2014. Afterwards, I was working as a data scientist / machine learning engineer for, a few years. The future of machine learning and AI has been one of my main interests and passions for a long time. I knew about blockchain from the early days. I actually recently found an email to myself dated 2013 to look into Bitcoin, Litecoin, XRP, and Feathercoin. And I should have listened to myself at that time. So it's something that I've been aware of from a while back. And as most people have as well, it really started permeating into the mainstream in late 2017. So that kind of reignited my interest and made me take a harder look at it. So I was kind of interested in trading because my background is in machine learning, and I wanted to apply the tools of data science and machine learning to cryptocurrency trading. And that's what algorithmic trading really is. It's trading on autopilot. You have some kind of model that looks at data and then makes decisions on when to buy and sell based on that data. So, in early 2018, I decided to marry my interests in machine learning and blockchain and get into algorithmic trading in the cryptocurrency domain, which is where Cryzen really came from.
Right. So that's pretty impressive. Everybody wants to try to create something new and innovative. And of course, machine learning, AI, and blockchains are two technologies people are trying to learn. And the fact that you know both, and now you're making a product that uses both, I don't know that a lot of people have skills in both, like what you have.
That is true. I would say that you can apply these methods to any asset class. So we're looking at price data feeds, and based on the data that we're receiving, we're building statistical models of what may happen in the future. Right. That is generally applicable to any market, the stock market, futures market, options market. So from that point of view, our backgrounds are coming from a trading point of view, and we're seeing cryptocurrencies as another asset class that we can apply these tools and methods to. Right. That said, there's a lot of interesting information on the blockchain, right? It's a public, distributed database. And so unlike traditional markets where transactions are happening in some black box on some centralized servers, here we can actually look at movements of, wealth and coins on the blockchain and use that for trading as well. So that's really where it gets interesting.
Right. And more data to train your AI systems with.
Exactly. So that was a dynamic that wasn't available for other asset classes like the stock market and the futures market. So here, we're able to peer into transactions, and so there, the intersection of the blockchain world and the trading and machine learning world really comes together in a synergistic way that lets us trade in a new with new approaches.
Right. Good. All right. And Brian, Lora, so you want to share a little bit of your background?
Yeah, so I'm currently the business development manager at Cryzen. I've been here for about 8 months now. And before I got to Cryzen, I used to do sales. I was a sales associate for a B2B partner for Verizon. And although I was pretty good at that, I quickly noticed that it wasn't fulfilling and that my passion lied elsewhere. I had a passion for software and innovation, and that kind of led me to get to Cryzen. I felt it was a very promising startup, and I agreed with the core principles and what they were trying to achieve, and it just felt like a natural progression. And here I am with Cryzen now. I couldn't be any happier.
Good. And then also, I'm curious. So, what's the story of how you ended up developing on Ethereum Classic, and how did you get into the small, ambitious group there at ETC Labs?
So our token, so we have a token. So our platform is, software as a service. It's on a centralized system, because for algo trading, it needs to be fast. We do have a token, which is a security token called the Zen token, spelled XEN. This is actually a token it's an ERC20 token on Ethereum. And what it does is it distributes profits made by the company to token holders. And if the company were to get acquired, any resulting proceeds from that, and obviously there should be some resulting proceeds from an acquisition, that would also in part get shared with token holders in proportion to the amount of tokens they have. It's currently on the Ethereum blockchain, but we are contemplating doing a portion of it on Ethereum Classic. That's not something we've started doing at the moment, but it is something we've been thinking about to expand our reach to the broader ecosystem, right? So shouldn't just be on one blockchain. If you're on Ethereum Classic or Callisto, we want to be as democratic and open as possible. So we may move in that direction in the coming future.
I see. So ETC Labs didn't expect that you don't have to at the beginning be developing first on Ethereum Classic, you're saying?
That's correct. So right now we're focusing more on the platform and the technology. So it's more of a resource allocation question. So as time progresses and our product matures, we will be looking at these other avenues and other blockchains. Not only Ethereum Classic, but potentially, other promising, blockchains and distributed ledgers in general to increase our reach and, permeate the broader ecosystem.
Okay, good. And so then why don't you kind of give us, you've already obviously said algorithmic trading, machine learning trading. Why don't you give us a little bit more detail now of what your services offer and why people should use your machine learning algorithms?
Sure. So Cryzen is essentially a platform to let traders trade on autopilot. Our mantra is trade algos, not coins. Trade algos, not stocks. We see a future where picking individual coins to buy and sell or stocks to buy and sell gets less and less competitive as machine learning and AI gets more and more sophisticated. As these models are better able to understand data from the real world, coming from news outlets, coming from social media, such as posts on Reddit, comments on Reddit, tweets on Twitter. As machine learning models get better at understanding the data from all of these sources, it will come to a point where you can make trading decisions based on the sentiment and the pulse of the entire world that you can perceive through these data outlets. And so as a trader, trying to be on top of all the different things that are going on and all the time, because the cryptocurrency markets are 24/7, becomes more and more challenging in the face of AI and machine learning that can look at everything all the time. So we really see in the next 5 years, 10 years, that there will be a phase shift and gravitation towards algo trading. And our goal is to provide traders and everyone really the tools to play on this new battlefield. So our goal is to make the experience of algo trading as simple as possible, so you don't have to have a computer science degree to break into it. Mm-hmm. Our platform has three steps to it, where first you go and you pick a strategy. So it could be, I want to try this neural network that trades Ethereum Classic based on what's being said on Reddit. So you pick a strategy. Every strategy has some parameters. You can take more risk, less risk, right? How many upvotes do you want on, let's say, a post related to Ethereum Classic before you buy? So there's different thresholds. You can
really do that on your platform. You can say, I'm going to invest depending on the sentiment, the attitude of comments on the Ethereum Classic subreddit.
That's part of the functionality we're working on right now. At the moment, you can trade based on price data. Okay. But in the coming months, we will have Reddit supported and sentiment based on Reddit comments and posts supported on our platform, so you could actually make trading decisions based on.
Now I'm curious. So you have a computer. The computer's reading the Reddit comments. So like you count the number of times people say "awesome," and that means they must be positive about ETC, and they use the word "sucks." How do you read and interpret the Reddit comments?
Sure. That's a very interesting question. And just to clarify, this functionality is in the development stage at the moment, so you aren't able to use it at the moment on the platform, but it is on the roadmap to happen within this year. Okay. The techniques that you use to actually understand if something positive or negative is being said can range in sophistication from something like what you described, where you can pick up the keywords and count the positive keywords versus the negative keywords and create some kind of score of whether or not this is positive or negative sentiment. That's one way to do it. My background is in natural language processing. There are other methods where you can go and use models as sophisticated as deep neural networks that have been trained on millions and millions of sentences coming from all sorts of data sources, and people have trained these models to pick up when something positive or negative is being said. It's essentially supervised machine learning, where you feed this model, here's a sentence, and here's what a human thought of that sentence. A human thought this was positive or negative.
Right.
Another sentence, and a human thought this of that sentence. And now you iterate that over a million different sentences, and the idea is that this machine learning model or deep neural network model is able to reverse engineer, what's the common denominator for a sentence being of positive sentiment versus negative sentiment.
Oh yeah, okay. Now that you explain it, now it's a lot more clear. Yes, so people do that today, right? People train their email system to detect spam. You label email. This is spam. This isn't spam, and then it can learn from your ratings or the way you specify, the way you mark each email. So you'd have to somebody have to go through and say, this is a positive comment, this is a negative comment about ETC, and then it'll train itself based on that supervised learning data. Yeah, okay, that's pretty cool. I wouldn't have thought of that.
Yeah. There's a lot of public data sources out there that you can pull. And so more generally, you're trying to understand if a sentence is good or bad, and then you apply it to ETC, sentences about ETC or some other cryptocurrency as they appear on Reddit.
Okay. All right. So now, wait, that was pretty interesting. Do you have any other interesting algorithms that you want to share? Some other, because that was pretty cool. Do you have any other cool ones?
So a lot of it is under development. At the moment, we have models that look at price data, and that's available on the platform. And we try to also use this same approach of supervised machine learning, where we look at certain aspects of past price movements to predict something about the future. And since we have the data on our platform, we can scan all the past data and see, okay, if there's two red candles, what's the probability that the next one is green or red, right? Or what does this machine learning model think should be the next candle given the last 5 candles? So these are interesting questions that we can answer at the moment on our platform. And recently, I actually used the platform to do a very quick and simplistic study of if you have a red candle, what's the probability that the next candle is green or red? And if you have a green candle, what's the probability that the next one is green or red? And we found that over the last 6 months of data, the opposite candle is more likely to occur 60% of the time. That means if today's candle is red, there's a 60% chance that tomorrow's candle will be green.
Now, can you elaborate what you mean by what candle you're referring to?
Sure. So just to backtrack, so a candle represents the summary of a period of time for a given asset, right? Okay. So a candle is defined by the opening price, the closing price, the high price, and the low price over some time interval. So I'm talking about, in particular, 24-hour candles right now for Ethereum. So if at the start of the day today, Ethereum is at $105, that would be the opening price.
It's a summary. It's a compact way to communicate the state of the market.
Exactly.
Okay, that makes sense. Okay.
And so what we found is that if you look at daily candles, there's a 60% chance that the opposite candle will occur tomorrow based on the last 6 months worth of data for Ethereum. And so if the market, if that were random, it would be 50%. But instead, it's the data is showing that there's a 60% chance of the opposite candle occurring. So if it's a red candle today, there's a 60% chance of a green candle tomorrow, and vice versa.
Okay, good. Now, and you mentioned competing algorithms. That's what I was wondering about. So, right, I've heard about Wall Street using a lot of high-frequency trading algorithms. So, if the whole world starts using trading algorithms and they're all competing with each other, that's not something to be too concerned about. That nobody's going to be able to win. Or you see what I'm saying? If everybody's doing it.
That's a really great question. I think about this question a lot, and it is inevitable that at some point you will have the battle of the bots, essentially. So you have different trading bots kind of competing with one another. Does that mean not everyone can be profitable? If the stock market or the crypto markets are a zero-sum game, then that is correct. So it's always a competition. And so the goal of our platform is really to empower the users. We're not prescribing any particular strategy or algorithm as something that should be deployed. Every algorithm or strategy has these knobs and dials, as I mentioned, like how positive should the sentiment be before you buy? How many upvotes do you want before you decide to buy? These are all things that the users can tweak. So when you go on our platform and use our strategies, we recommend you play around with these knobs and dials so that the resulting end strategy is unique to you, right? So you have your own unique fingerprint of parameters for any given strategy. And if you find something that's profitable, right, we're kind of letting you see that through simulation. So you're not going in blind when you deploy a strategy on the live markets, and that should ideally give you an edge. But every algorithm does have a half-life. If you find something that is profitable, most likely it will be profitable for a few months, but at some point, other people will catch on, and your slice of the pie will get smaller and smaller, and then you need to innovate and find something else. So I think the nature of trading and algo trading both is that you constantly need to innovate to be on top of the markets and win in this potentially zero-sum game, and that's a separate question. And so our goal is to provide people with the tools to be able to at least be competitive in this game. So at the moment, the mainstream of the trading population are not included so much in algorithmic trading. It's dominated by Wall Street. So we really want to give Main Street the tools to start looking into algo trading and making use of these techniques and advances in machine learning and AI that's occurring.
Yeah, make it more accessible, approachable to regular people.
Exactly. The other way we phrase ourselves is that eventually our goal is to be the Robin Hood of algo trading.
Okay.
So right now, it's fun. We show your friend like, hey, I bought Apple. Check out my Robin Hood app. I've performed this well over the last month. We seriously do think there will be a future in the next 5 to 10 years where you're sharing with your friend, hey, check out this neural network that looks at Reddit posts for Ethereum Classic and buys and sells based on that. And I made X% returns using this neural network over the last month. And we really want to gamify that process, make it accessible so that anyone, you don't have to be a coder or have a computer science degree, right? Anyone with a smartphone would be able to take advantage of these tools.
Right. And then it sounds like you're talking about the need to keep innovating. I presume people could be as hands-on as they want. They could really take charge of the evolution of their algorithms, or they can rely on you, and you'll maybe help them more, provide more of a hand-holding capability and give them new algorithms. Is that correct? Or
100%. So every strategy you can turn the knobs and dials and configure it how you want. In addition to that, we do allow developers to create any strategy that they can imagine using Python, so they can code up their strategies on the platform. In the future, we are contemplating opening up some sort of marketplace, whether it's paid or free. We're still thinking about that, where people can share ideas. And it's common. You'd think, why would people share something that's potentially profitable? But in existing ecosystems in the stock market world, people do that. It's more, there's an academic mindset. People share ideas. They build on top of each other's ideas. And of course, the thing that they're running on their own portfolio, probably they won't share that, but they'll share some derivative work, and people build on top of each other's ideas. So our goal is really to enable users to continue innovating in this competitive landscape, as you mentioned.
Okay, good. Now, and then I'm curious. I mean, that sounds like a fun place to work. I'm a math guy myself. I think it would be fun to think about how to improve machine learning, money-making algorithms.
I would agree.
But how would you, so you get as much data as you can, then how do you keep innovating, right? Do you just get new data sources, or, you retrain your neural network? How does that process work? Can you say something about that?
Yeah, really great question. There's two levels of innovation, two ways to innovate. And I think basically what you mentioned, one is we can feed in more data streams into the platform. So whereas today you can only trade based on price data, by the end of the year, you would have access to Reddit data as well as potentially other social media sources. The goal is also to funnel in data from the blockchain. So if there's a whale account moving a large amount of funds from one wallet to maybe the Binance wallet, you can make a decision based on that. So data lets you look at different dimensions that it might affect the markets. And then the other way to innovate is at the level of your models, right? So the machine learning field is pretty ripe with innovation these days. There's a lot of cool research coming out every day. People are trying different types of neural networks and seeing how they perform on different data sets. So bringing in insights from that world, whether you're a developer or us at Cryzen doing that and then making it available to others to use, is another way of injecting innovation from this growing and rapidly evolving world of machine learning into our platform.
Right. No, you brought up another good, simple need that people would have, or a service they would like. You mentioned whales, right? So people are concerned, yes, but whales being defined as people that own a large percentage of any cryptocurrency. So yes, people are concerned about when they dump their asset holdings or when they move the market somehow. So the only way somebody would do it without your platform is they would have to somehow write their own script, right, to be analyzing the blockchain continuously for such trades. But yes, then you provide a lot of that. You do a lot of that work for them.
So the goal is to eventually provide this data out of the box in a very seamless way, where you don't really have to think about, okay, I need to download this entire blockchain and then study it and then monitor it in real time if I want to trade based off it. Like, we're taking care of all of that infrastructure and pipeline work behind the scenes. So you just log on, click on a strategy that's based on the blockchain and say, hey, if X amount of funds move from one wallet to the Binance wallet in the last Y minutes, then sell all my orders, right? Because maybe somebody wants to sell and dump a bunch of Bitcoin or Ethereum Classic onto the market.
Right.
So so our goal is to just let people focus on the logic and the ideas that they have, rather than have to worry about where this data is coming from, hosting that data, monitoring it in real time, and all the other challenges that typically appear.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, they can, if they can stay at a higher level, focusing on more on their investing strategy than wasting time, with little trivial programming distractions.
Exactly. More often than not, traders aren't interested in doing the heavy lifting themselves. So we're giving them the tools to make that a seamless transition.
And that's why we built the platform. Like, we were traders ourselves, and all these challenges were taking up 90% of our time, and we didn't really spend much time on building the actual strategies or experimenting with all the ideas that we had, which is the fun part, right? 90% of our time was going into the not fun part of collecting data, executing orders on the exchanges, and it was a pain point, and there really was not any good tool out there. And that was part of the motivation for building this platform, for building Cryzen.
So there was a real need that you had, right? They say, right, sometimes entrepreneurs, they first scratch their own itch. So you did something that was beneficial and had value to you guys, and then you guessed that other people would also find value out there.
This is definitely a case of we scratched our own itch, and we realized a lot of people also had this itch as well. So it made sense for us to create a platform, not just for ourselves, but to open it up to everyone else that also had the similar itch.
Okay, good. And so now you've talked about adding more data feeds to Cryzen. Can you say something more about the future? What are some other dreams and plans you have for Cryzen in the next, 1 year, 5 years, 10 years?
Sure. So in the immediate term, we definitely want to add data from Reddit. Reddit isn't as high throughput as Twitter, so it's easy to collect and monitor in real time. We'd probably address Twitter after that. There's so many tweets going on at any given time. In terms of collecting that data and monitoring it in real time, it's really a challenge of scale. So that will probably come after Reddit. Monitoring the blockchain is probably less data intensive. It depends on which coin and how many coins you're looking at than Twitter, right? Less data intensive than Twitter. So we'd probably prioritize that. The long-term future really involves us injecting the latest and most cutting-edge tools there are in the machine learning space and ecosystem onto our platform, so users who don't know how to code can take advantage of the latest models that are coming out of this very exciting field. Right. Another feature we do plan on adding within the year is called a parameter optimization feature, and it sounds complicated, but it's really not. What that means is, as I was mentioning before, every strategy has a lot of knobs and dials, and we encourage the user to play around with that so they come up with their own unique strategy. But what if you could search many different possibilities, right? You can tweak these knobs and dials in many different ways, and our system is on the cloud. So we can search many different combinations of these parameters for some given strategy simultaneously, right? So we could look at thousands of different thresholds for, okay, if the upvotes are greater than this, and the title of the post contains this, should I buy or sell, right? And so you look at many different possibilities of those parameters and see what is most profitable very easily on our platform, since it's all cloud-based. So we want to basically have one button, and you push this one button and it explores thousands of possibilities for you and gives you a map of what are all the possibilities that this strategy can get to in terms of profitability. So that I'm really excited about. That will most likely happen in this year. We'll push out a detailed roadmap later this month of the features we're expecting to put on the platform within the year. And I think even longer term, one of the things that really excites me are the techniques that are coming out of DeepMind related to reinforcement learning. So DeepMind it's an AI company that got acquired by Google, and they're the guys who solved Go. So if you guys have heard about AlphaGo, which was done by DeepMind, that's a specific type of machine learning model that learns how to play games and gets really good at playing games. And it requires no data, right? So supervised machine learning, you need to feed it all this data and tell it what the correct output should be. For reinforcement learning, you let these AIs kind of play the game against itself, and then it learns how to get better and better over time. So
I'm glad you brought that up. I have to admit that was shocking when I first heard of that, because they say Go is more complicated than chess. And I know that when IBM, made their Deep Blue, I think it's called, they did a lot of work. But now with Go, Google didn't even have to hardly do that much. Well, they had to do work to set up the system, but it trained itself, which is kind of shocking, because if you think Go is the most complicated game, so that just shows the power of reinforcement learning.
Absolutely. So they did not have to hard code any rules into the AI or give it any data. You just hard code any rules as in, okay, the board configuration is like this. This is the next move you should make. All they give the reinforcement learning system are what's the current score, which could be possibly all the way at the end of the game when you win, right? That's when you realize that you've done something good, or all the way at the end of the game you've lost, and that gives you a signal that you've done something bad. And then it tries to optimize and figure out when it's getting a high score, what is it doing, and then it tries to do more of that. That's basically the concept.
So something like that with cryptocurrency trading, where you say the way you win the game is to make the most money, and you just let it keep, maybe even try to out compete against itself, and then somehow it's going to by itself find the best trading strategy.
Spot on. So these are possibilities that reinforcement learning can bring to the cryptocurrency world or the trading world in general. Because for reinforcement learning, what you really need is some kind of measure of how successful this model or agent is. And in the markets, like you said, there's a very simple measure of that, which is how much money you're making. Right? So you put this model loose on the data, and you tell it, you have two actions at your disposal. Buy or sell. Go do some random stuff. See what your outcome, what the output is, or what your measure of success is, and try to maximize that. Right? It's really that simple. In theory, in concept, right? But then there's a lot that goes into the engineering of that. So in the long-term horizon, we want to bring tools and techniques like this also into Cryzen and into the set of tools available for users on Cryzen to do algorithmic trading.
Good. So, all right, I think you've given us a good introduction to you guys, and then also what services Cryzen is offering and what they plan to offer in the future. Did we cover everything, or was there anything we missed?
Brian, anything that excites you in particular, or any thoughts?
Well, I mean, if I were to discuss the things that excite me, I'd be speaking for the entire day. But definitely happy that just because I got to see a very personal and in close look on the development of the platform, I'm just generally excited that we launched this past Thursday, and now we get to use it. So I encourage everybody to try it out because you'll soon be just as excited as I am.
Okay, good. And Shuvro, anything else? Any other last parting comments?
It's been a lot of fun working with Brian and our other two co-founders who are not on this call. So Robin, our CTO, and Krill, our chief data scientist. And it's probably been one of the most fun experiences in my life. And as Brian mentioned, it all came together last Thursday. So the platform is there for you guys to use. So we highly encourage you guys to use it, give us feedback, let us know what you guys want. Any suggestions are useful, and looking forward to hearing your thoughts and comments.
All right, very good. So thank you, Brian and Shuvro, for an interesting discussion, and I wish you well with all your efforts with Cryzen.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you for having us.
Sure.
It's a pleasure.
Bye-bye.
Take care.